And I need to find out where it's going. Since I am logged in Zoom Committee 1, it should be going to the cloud, but there's
It
no.
will when you save it, right? When you log out.
There's usually a place.
You're ahead of me. You wouldn't have a clue.
No, I've done this from home and
You did record.
That shows up when you close out though, right? It says, where do you want to save it to?
it might. Lynn, I've got you. If you'd go off mute and just let us know that you can hear us.
Hold on.
Hi there, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, great. Are we in the public comment period?
Oh, we haven't begun yet.
Okay, great.
Okay, we're now ready to go.
Yeah.
This is the August 16th. Nantucket Roads and Right-of-Ways Committee meeting. We are doing it live as we're also doing it over Zoom. And because of that, we'll have to do roll call for any sort of votes that we take. And afterwards, just for those of you that are bored, you can watch this on YouTube afterwards. So that being said, we have a quorum and we have some guests, so we'll jump right into it. The first order on the agenda is public comment. And do we have anybody from the public which wishes to comment?
Lynn,
Yes. I'm Lynn Filipski. I'm with the Wisconsin Civic Association. I apologize for my voice. I seem to be getting laryngitis. I've been approached by a number of homeowners on Baxter Road who are concerned with the hundreds of people on the Bluff Walk. And I know from the 2010 subcommittee report to Roads and Right-of-Way that there is a series of rules that are to be employed on the Bluff Walk that currently are not being adhered to. And so the members of Baxter Road on that side that are abutters are very concerned with people walking over private property that are not on a right-of-way. People walking up to their houses, taking pictures, bicycles that have tried to enter, strollers, every conceivable kind of noise as people walk by. It's become quite a circus. And we have spoken to the head of the culture and tourism board, and Chantal has been very understanding about the amount of traffic that's generated because the town has promoted it so heavily. And in the original 2010 report, the idea was not to make this a very loud and often spoken tourism attraction because we simply cannot handle the volume on a narrow path that in some ways is narrower than 2 feet and abutting a bluff drop off. The DPW has been very good about maintaining it recently. So you see a wider range of where your feet can go, but there is an inordinate amount of narrow spaces that make it impossible for people to walk by, and they're walking in groups of 10 and 12 as large families have approached, starting even from Front Street, walking up to the right of way. So we feel the sign itself at the southern part does not accurately list the behaviors that are desired. It's more, if you remember, it's a poem, a Stackpole poem, and then some three, dog leash, no running, and now I'm gonna forget the third one, maybe no bike. And it really needs to have a little bit more attention because the neighbors themselves want some more patrolling of the walk. And that was raised as a suggestion by the subcommittee. Their idea was the community safety officer, which I'm not sure would be a viable way of doing it, only because there are 5 access points. We are looking at a QR code that could be mounted on the sign, that could be scanned and would give a history of the path, the fragility of the path, the natural resource of the path, but also the rules of being quiet, no photographing houses, no running, no wheeled cycles or strollers. And we have looked at the Newport Cliff Walk as well as Prout's Neck in Maine to see what hours of operation are really appropriate, because the subcommittee recommended 7:30 to dusk, and the sign says dawn to dusk. Well, dawn can be 5 o'clock in the morning, which is not, if you're trying to weigh the rights for privacy and quiet with the right of the public to access it, it's a little off balance at this time. So I wanted to introduce this subject, perhaps for you as a committee to look at in greater detail as you go through the coming month, or ask for more input from the neighbors themselves. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Could you, we don't really have a formal email. Could you, I'll give you my email address as long as you don't tell anybody.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, this is a public hearing.
Yeah.
WG1431 @gmail. If you could send me an email with your contact info, so that we can, by right of your action, you're actually going to be the contact person for this. So we can get back to you with some follow-up and some information going forward.
Okay,
So
so
it's
WD,
G like in
Okay.
great, WG
and then,
1431.
okay. That would be great. I'm having a meeting with them on Thursday morning just to listen to what they would like to talk about. And then I can give you a full report on
Okay, so
what
if you
we've
could
been
just-
doing.
You could just send me a hello and I'll respond so that we know that we're talking to each other instead of somebody in,
Fairbanks, Alaska.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there.
Okay, I appreciate it.
We have a couple of things here, Phil.
This is Phil Smith. Lynn, do you feel, or to the neighbors there feel that there's an issue with the public access points from Baxter Road are not well marked, or is that not an issue?
The town itself tells them to enter from the south, from really above Bank Street, and other people, I would say there are some points like where Emily Street is, where it does have a marker, but it's very narrow, and that's not really an appropriate way to walk on. Rosalie is wider and Nosegay is wider. Those are good. And then the exit point that's almost up at Bayberry is an excellent place for another sign that would have rules on it discreetly, not like the large sign the DPW put for watch for tree roots. That is enormous on the south end of the path.
There are specific access points that we
Yes.
have in our database. whether they're too narrow or whatever, but there are specific access points. My sense is, because I've gone by there, and I've felt uncomfortable as to where to go in because it doesn't seem really well marked. And so I'm just thinking that one thing could be, we agree as to what the legitimate public access points are, and then we mark them appropriately. And some of those, I think, are going right down the driveway of some of the people, but they are
Yes.
public access points.
Yes, that would be Peter Soros's house. That is up at Ann's Lane when it comes across, which has no marker.
So I think one of the things we would have to look at this winter is confirm the access points, agree that they're all legitimate among ourselves, among the neighbors, and then do something regarding the marking of it.
Item 6 on the agenda, we'll discuss that, but we're ready to mark them. It's a question of getting a few more markers in the ground.
Okay, but we also, I think, need to clarify with the community what those access points are. They might not know what we have in our records.
It's pretty well known by the neighborhood, but not the tourists. And actually, the tourists only enter from the south, very rarely from the north. So your main access point is off of Front Street, which has created a problem for all of Front Street, of which Libby Gibson said that she would help restore that private lane with shelling, because you have 600 people easily a day. And that's just looking at 5 years of time a neighbor has watched.
So where do they park? On Baxter Road?
And they don't. In fact, they come and they create congestion in the center of the village, but mostly they come, thankfully, by NERDA and either bicycling. Bicycling's big.
Rick?
Well, I just want to make sure, I'm sure you got the original report by our subcommittee on the
Yes,
footpath.
yes, and I've shared it with them.
Right, and my sense, because I know my wife Deanne was involved with Harvey Young.
Yes,
chairing
she was
that
the
sub-
co-chair.
And Bert Ryder.
And Bert Ryder chairing the subcommittee. I think my sense then is it's a symptom of the change in over time and the usage and the advertising that you focused on. And access points are important, but I think the volume is probably, and education is really important. And seems to me the chamber or others can start to say, we'll back off a little bit. We don't need to keep adverts or, sort of portraying this as a place for every bike trip, every bus drop off and so forth. So.
Yeah, it's a management problem because it is fragile and people need to respect it. It's also a source of poison ivy and ticks. So you really want to inform people to dress appropriately. We don't need any more infections on island with Lyme disease. And we are totally overrun with deer that use the path as well at night.
Lynn, we'll bring you up to date with what we know here around the table. But the first question is whether or not the tour guides are dropping people off.
I'm sure they drop them off at the market and then give them a half an hour to go walk. So the lower part of the path is more heavily used. And then they segue to Baxter Road sometimes, but oftentimes they just get tired and they just walk out where it looks broad and wide, and they're not looking for markers to exit.
Okay, this is not the first time that residents on Baxter Road have come before us.
Yes.
We became very friendly with Holland,
Linda Holland.
Linda Holland,
Yes.
who took it upon herself to be the monitor of the footpath. Bluntly, the footpath belongs to the town.
Yes,
The 5 access points other than Front Street have been taken by the town and have public easements on them. And yes, we are aware that some of them are not well marked. Alan Reinhardt and I went out and made a list of where they need to go, and that's one of our agenda items if you want to stay.
I'd be happy to listen. I'd also be interested, because the report originally said it would be great if the town did a survey of the path, because we're not sure exactly where some of the path is accurate or where it is not. And the suggestion was to have CPC funds pay for that survey, especially for the southern end.
Okay, we're gonna pursue this. You and I will exchange communication, and then we'll start down looking at this and keep you updated.
I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the residents would appreciate it. Thank you.
So just a couple more points, Bill, committee and Lynn. The sign belongs to the Sconset Trust. And so if you and the trust want to amend it or add more, I'm sure that would be okay, but it's going to be the town that accepts them.
Okay.
And then I had 2 points. What was the other one? I think, enforcement. Enforcement again belongs to the town. We've had presentations from representatives of the police just saying that their shortage of personnel means that they can't get out there as frequently as they want. They do send a patrol car. I'm not sure whether it's once a day or more frequently.
It only comes at night.
But then to get out of the patrol car and walk the walk is another burden. We were pleased to hear from you that DPW is doing its job with the brush cutting. Bill.
Yep. All right, so thank you. We're gonna tight schedule this, so we're gonna move along, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. And
Thank
we
you.
will start working on that.
Great.
And you're welcome to stay unless you have something more pressing to do.
Unless you want to move, well, yes, welcome to stay, but.
Yeah.
Uh,
We'll get through, we'll hook it up.
well, could we move item 6 up ahead?
Yeah, well, we'll
Up to you.
move along here and then we'll get to, we'll get to it shortly. So the first item would be, next item would be approval of minutes from July 19th. That we send out, have any corrections, changes?
Okay, we could have a motion and a second, but Rick sent me a note saying that he had a few editorial changes.
Yeah, I
Are
don't
they
think,
editorial or
I
they have
think they're
substance?
largely editorial. They're changing the, a couple of statements that I think were sort of just probably misinterpreted and trying to correct them.
So what do we do?
And I
Postpone?
think that if we could agree that Lee and I can agree on them, we'd be all set. They're not gonna bother anybody about some real substance.
Okay, everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
My motion to accept the amendment worked out.
Okay, who's seconding?
So we have a second here. Anyone?
Alan.
Second by Alan, so now we have to do a roll call because of Zoom.
Yeah.
Alan Reinhardt,
I
Bill,
abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Ricky,
Abstain. I wasn't at the meeting either.
Lee,
Aye.
Rick, Ed,
Aye.
and who do we have on air?
I
Rob,
have to abstain because I wasn't here.
is that all that's logged in? Greta says yes.
Yeah, so the other people on Zoom are willing participants, but not voting members.
Okay. So the motion carried. Thank you. Ken Bogrand is not going to be here. He's filing on vacation. Nat will also send a message if he's on the mainland. we can actually hold off on chapter 91, because that's gonna be a little bit of involved discussion. And as lo and behold, the next item would be public monuments, public way monuments.
Well, there's the Washington Pond Road agenda item,
Yeah.
but we could do that
Let's hold
after.
off on that too.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so the public way monument project. It was on the agenda initially so that we could identify one or two locations. And start pecking away at our list. Knowing that we're going to need to solicit installation help from DPW or someone. So we wanted to at least target a couple of spots and actually get something going this fall and spring. So we'll hold off on identifying with one or two so that we can chat with Lynn and Wisconsin Bluffs.
Yeah. If you recall, Bill, I did bring the list of monuments up to date and then got stuck on formatting.
Right.
And I think I sent you a copy, but if I didn't, I'll send you another copy. And you said, oh, Lee, formatting in Excel is easy. I can help you with that.
So the one that I have is the existing monuments, not,
No, it's everything.
oh no, I'm saying the one I currently have, so. If you could send me that other one, that'd be great.
Well,
The one you had pictures with it?
yeah.
Okay, I do have that, I apologize.
Okay, so there were two parts. One was the up-to-date list, which included all monuments installed by primarily Alan. And then the second was a memo of our last, I wanted to say most recent, but it's now over a year, last trip around, where we write down I have written down each place we stopped and what the suggestion was for a monument
Okay,
there.
I'll
That's a
hook up-
memo.
I'll hook up with you and make sure I get the right copy and then we'll distribute it with everybody and stick it on the website.
Right,
Alan?
Mr. Chairman, let me just add to the conversation here. When Lee and I went around to figure out where the monuments needed to be placed, I believe we have 6 monuments, the upright monuments behind 2 fairgrounds, the electric company. And we have, I believe there are 6 flush monuments. Those are the ones that go in the ground and flush and so on. And I spoke with DPW, I spoke with Stephen, our new director. And I explained to him that this has been an ongoing project. This has been a long-term project and that all the initial posts that we put in the ground, we did ourselves, essentially. We had Dave Visco with his Bobcat come, and that's how we got most of those in the ground. Since then, we realized that we need to have the DPW, we need somebody with the equipment to lift those things, because each one of those upright monuments weighs between 400 and 500 pounds. So just to get them to the site, once we get them to the site, we can dig the hole. That's what Lee and I did essentially for the 30 some that we have in the ground already. Now, when I checked with Stephen about it, he said that they're really, shorthanded at the moment. He promised that in the fall that, I explained to him it would probably take maybe 4 or 5 hours of, time. Somebody to move the piece of equipment we need to lift up the monuments and put them in place and so on. And I think one, possibly 2 staff members from the DPW. So anyway, the DPW is aware of what we are after. The list that Lee and I compiled to go around and put those monuments in. So
Hey, can I interrupt you guys? I was told this is where the walk-in clinic is, but evidently it's not.
No,
Sorry, the
Where
what?
is that?
the walk-in clinic,
You talking about the access, emergency access?
Nantucket Walk-in Clinic.
It's over near the hospital.
It's,
59 Prospect.
it's in the hospital grounds, but it's next door to Dr. Leprey's office and it's signposted there. So it's the small building at the edge of the parking lot against Prospect Street.
Thank you. Oh, okay, thank you.
You're not Pleasant Hospital. One, two, six.
Can I ask a question on that? Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I think we have found that the vertical monuments are more visible and apparent to the public than the ones that are flush in the ground. And should we talk about any new stonework going into the ground? If there's some reason we cannot do it for some reason, that we should try to consider doing the vertical monuments?
let me just briefly address that for particularly the Sconset Bluff Walk. We chose to use the flush monuments there, with the exception of the beginning and the end of the path. We put upright ones there, but all the horizontal or the lateral ways, because those ways are fairly narrow, we decided that, we put something in the ground on both the path side and on the road side, on the Baxter Road side, we felt that would be a better way to address that.
It's a driveway.
To follow Alan's comment, I'm trying to remember, out of the 20-foot way, each abutter got 10 in a yard sale and the town retained a 4-foot pedestrian easement. If we put the monument in the easement, in one or two cases, it would be in a driveway.
Right.
And so we moved them to the edge. And since these are not the primary path, but there's nothing to stop us from discussing.
Okay.
Well, and you might be referring to other areas where there might be more appropriate to put them as well, which, and we talked about even the redesign perhaps.
Yeah. Hobart Avenue is another example where we put several flush monuments in, and two of them are now missing the flush monuments because they're pretty easy to, pick up. I put those in myself, so that, vision.
Well, the brush goes right over it, so you don't see it.
True, and the reason we did that, for the same reason we did the flush ones along the Sconset Bluff. We felt that they would be less intrusive, put it that way. Because on both sides of those trails, it's all private property and that sort of thing. But we decided, or we didn't decide, but Lee and I discussed this when we were doing our trip around the island. And we thought that at least on two of the ways along Hobart Avenue, that they could do an upright one. Although the people that use those off of Hobart Avenue know where they are. So,
It's kind of a,
That's not that's not a reason.
it's a catch-22 in some instances. The right of ways are what they are, they're right of ways. And the angst with some of the property owners is that the right of way is right down their driveway. And I think of our beloved James Street issue off of Hobart Avenue. And so there's consternation when folks actually use the public way and it goes across your property. So there's a fine line there where we try to walk, but the most effective ones are the ones that are vertical as opposed to the ones that are in the ground. Because they tend to stay, there. So I think it's gonna have to be a case by case. And and move along, but I don't think what we want to do is keep kicking it down the road and say, well, we need to do something. I think it's time that we start to do it. So we can, knock off the ones that we all agree on that can be done and then work on the ones, the more difficult ones.
Mhm.
I agree with Phil on that last point, but again, they're public ways. They're not just for people that know where the public ways are. They're to mark public ways for those who are new to the community and quite frankly, don't know where the public ways are. So, and I know a lot of the old rebar or however they made the old concrete ones in the old days, some of them are been deteriorating somewhat, so perhaps they might have to do that as well as we go along.
And you don't know how much time we spent looking for that mold. Because what they were traffic, tire stops, just like out here, they're tire stops.
Appreciate.
But when they
you.
cast them, they had a plate with the inscription in reverse. And that's how it got molded in there. Everybody remembered doing it, nobody knew where it was. Okay,
Too bad my late father's not around because his concrete company used to peripherally make those things.
yeah. I had something much more significant than that.
All right, so
anecdote. I can't remember
let's
what
slide
it
over
was.
to Scott the Bluff.
Well, I've got thing on the right of way. It comes out in line with Emily Street. That right of way belongs to the Commonwealth of Mass. From when the Humane Society house was down on the beach.
Really?
That's the story I got as a kid growing up out there anyway.
So which one is that, Snooky?
The one that lines up with Emily Street, right next
Oh.
door to Joan Porter.
Yes, right,
Between 13 and 15.
exactly. Now, there is a flush monument in the ground on both sides of that one,
Yeah,
so,
that's a wide one.
yeah, there's one there and there's another one down at the beginning,
Nosegay,
the Nosegay, yeah. And there's also one at the end, at number 60, whatever the number is. Where you
Yeah.
go to
What
the
is
edge.
now?
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and
halfway up.
there are two flush ones there, one at each end of the monument.
Yeah.
Or the way.
So, Bill, I think it's already been said, but several of these ways do require access either to emergency crews or to people who want to drag a kayak. And that's a partial reason for the flush. The other is that these are the less significant ways. And really, the monument says, oh, if you want to depart here, this is a good idea. It's not necessarily an invitation to all and everyone to take these narrow access ways.
Yeah, also like the chapter 91 things that they put in the ground as well sometimes.
No, I understand all that. It was just, at some point, we have to get over the niceties of it and the rule is the rule and it's, if it's, so that's our charge, so.
So memory is restored. Alan's point of giving Stephen Arsenault a work order for installation may mean that we can get him to think in terms of regular maintenance so as to cut that brush. It's just a weed whacker was be all it would take, work of a minute. We've got several of the uprights that have been disappearing into the native vegetation, Rosa rugosa or whatever, and those need to be cut back with a lopper.
Well, some of the safety issues as well.
Yeah.
I think, actually, I think you hit on to Alan's point of talking with Stephen, I think we should, I'll offer this out to the group, but I think we should look at it twofold, the work order to install, gets it on their, officially on their radar. That we work with them on an installation process, and then the second one is on an upkeep. Reason I mentioned the second one is mile marker 3 on Mattica Road, for the last 2 years has been missing. And it's just because the
I thought I saw it
Maintenance
just the
crew.
other day.
pardon,
I thought I saw a mile marker.
you did, because I counted the landscape guys and said in the bushes is mile marker 3, so.
We've got the same thing on Milestone Road.
Right, so they, once they know it's an all new group and once they know it, and so it doesn't hurt to touch base. And I think by the work order and install, at least we can get in the loop on scheduling. And then when we find one that, let's do this one or whatever, it's that we can move forward with it, but at least he's got it on his punch list. If he doesn't have funds set aside for it, he can start to set funds aside for it. And we move along. Getting back to the bluff, what I would suggest is, between now and the first of sometime, that we all, as able, slide out there, and take a walk and see it right now. Some of the homeowners are obviously around. And they certainly are attuned to coming out and saying hello if they see somebody on their lawn. So, we can always, get familiar with what they're going through and what's currently there. And so that in the winter months, when we don't want to go out and walk out there, that we've seen it, some sort of recent thing. Phil?
Is there any issues of by walking on the walk? You could be damaging the bank, the embankment?
No, it's back far enough that you're not gonna endanger them. The thing is, you're endangering yourself in front of some of the houses because they cobblestone on an angle into the path
That's one way of cutting down on.
along in the
Tourism.
30s.
Well, it just, and I know we have a lot of time this winter to go into it, but it just seems to me 600 people a day. And these are people that don't know necessarily that this exists, but somebody is telling them that this is where to go.
Well-
But there is an education element to this.
I'm at the Information Bureau 3 days a week, for the shipwreck shuttle and chatting with folks that are there, and while they're waiting, or they're asking. And, that's one of the big items that people talk about when they come in there, how do I get to the bluff? So there's literature obviously all over the place, and that's piquing their interest before they get here. And they walk into the Information Bureau and say, how do we get to the bluff? And so, I think it's a multifaceted process for us to do this. And it's, it may be that we ask them at the Information Bureau to, oh, by the way, if you're gonna go to the bluff, here's some stuff that you need to be aware of. You're mingling on between private and public property, and
I no longer have the reference, but there were a series of travel articles about Nantucket and Nantucket's hidden treasures. And that's when the cat jumped out of the bag.
Last week's Inquirer Mirror on Quidnet.
Yeah.
You take looking back, the second thing down, 176 dead sharks on the beach at Quidnet.
It was never the intent to drive the public, to the footpath when Deanne and Harvey, who headed up that project, spent a year and a half, I think, as far as gathering the information, as far as getting the town to do what they needed to do to take the lateral ways and so on. It was never the intent to drive people there. Unfortunately, when press or the people who write all the advertisements for Nantucket, they're looking for something to say. Unfortunately, we don't have any control over that, which is kind of too bad. You like to think that people behave themselves, that they don't act like jerks when they're on, obviously something else. But as we know from being on Nantucket at the height of the summer, there are always going to be those people who do stupid things. So,
so try to cut this discussion short so we can get the other items in. So our follow-up will be, first off, we're gonna get some information from the Wisconsin folks. If everybody could slide out there and do their own walk along and check stuff out. It'll be 600 plus by the time we all get through there. I'll reach out to DPW director and tell him our plan on why we're gonna do a couple of these work orders, so he doesn't think we're trying to overload him. Will, I know you're on the call, and if you could pass that along. Give him a heads up that, I'll be contacting him and what the subject matter is and, what the concerns are, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure thing.
But by the way, Will, maybe I'm just speaking uselessly, but if you haven't been on the path, it's a good walk.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, great. Okay, you see, you know where it is. To Lynn and the committee, when we get the updated list, it'll go on the website. There is a list, but it is dated. It's 8-10 years old. With photographs of the monuments that were in place when we made that list. That's on the website and we need to renew it.
Okey dokey. So let's move on from that. We'll back up a bit. Chapter 91, I sent everybody the update or the copy from the Vice Chair of Concom about. Yeah, did you all get that?
Yeah.
And he gave us a couple of items. That Dan Bailey, the attorney representing the owner on the bulkhead that we asked about, which was Grand Point. So if you get a chance to check those out and
I'll add one thing to the chapter 91 thing, which is interesting. From a sales standpoint, if you sell something that down on the straight one, there's a commercial building, for instance, and there's a change of use. You have to go through the whole chapter 91 process to change the use of the building itself. So.
And which building?
Well, no, it's
Any building.
it's just any building. It's that's within the purview of the chapter 91, including a lot of the ones on Straight Walk, Four Winds or, to name a few, any of those.
The old island service.
Right.
All those old scallop shanties.
Well, and that one particularly, no, right.
Something has worked to the extent that the INM printed a large legal notice in a big enough type to be read without a magnifying glass about an application for a Chapter 91 license that was open for review.
I think I sent a copy of that. to
Right,
All
this
the
is-
committee members.
Well, that was the one that was saying about the Windy Smith. That's on Old
this
Wharf.
is the old North Wharf.
Now, on Old South Wharf, what you were talking about was that I'm wondering whether, when they bar Yoshi and all that, which was obviously a fairly significant change of use. I wonder if they have chapter 1, updated the chapter 91.
Good question.
I mean, all that's owned by Nantucket Island
Yeah.
in IR, so, So it'd be interesting to see if they've kept they have a lot of, they should have a lot of chapter 91 licenses, but they must be, I would suspect they're somewhat updated just from all the work that he's done on that wharf in the last couple of winters to shore it, lifted and, put the steel
Completely
underneath.
rebuilt it.
Right, so then, you would think that they went through
You think for all the walk and finger piers and all that stuff that they had to apply for a modification.
You would think, but you never know.
Although there's never been a problem with public access on the wharf. has there?
But it just, when you change the.
They
use,
still have
you
to
do it, you still gotta.
Do the work, they
Right,
still have. to.
yeah.
Still gotta go through the legal.
Yeah.
And it's the land court and all these things, they're time consuming. They're way, everybody's short. And they're really short.
Now, is that the case also when a house sells? If it's on the waterfront, do they have to
They have to,
reapply or something?
they do only like that example I gave you next to the white elephant there.
Right.
If they're doing something like an addition to it, lifting it and moving it, they do have to do that. Like there should be a number of them in process down on Eastern right now.
My understanding, and Ed can help me out on this, is that if there's a transfer without a change or change in use, the new record has to reflect the fact that there are conditions in the deed.
It's-
And so the newly recorded deed should show the chapter 91. But I don't think it needs a revised application if there's no change.
If there's no changes, it doesn't, to my knowledge. But it does have to, sometimes the finding of the chapter 91 license holds up. And then they're not always recorded with the deed as they should have been. So,
Well, we know that held up, the sale of the major, item next to Palpa
Oh,
Cemetery.
Swain's neck.
Swain's Neck, yeah. Guy said, hey, if it's not clean, I'm not buying it.
Let somebody else give along. And
Rick, did you have anything on chapter 91?
Well, I think what this, Ed's point is somewhat pertinent to the discussion that started occurring on 18 Washington Pond, where the location of the houses when the original license was issued had been changed, so the house was moved. And it, you know, and some people feel that because the house was moved, the property was no longer entitled to a chapter 91 license, or at least it should be reviewed.
it should have been updated.
They would have
And that-
required.
Required, and Mr. Bailey was the attorney in that case representing the property owners, so there was a little. He maintained he didn't need Concom approval for anything. And so things differ depending on what the project is about. And they ended up getting approval there for the project with stairs on both sides, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I thought they pulled it.
I pulled it.
It was continued, not.
Oh, okay,
sorry,
well,
continue.
that's,
Right, so then they had more
Continued.
meetings and they continued along some discussions. And some of which are related to what I was just trying to explain and other matters.
Right.
And then I believe the Concom ended up approving the project with whatever they wanted to add, like stairs. I'm just giving you a sense.
I didn't know.
So I think we could easily get a copy of their approval
right,
and circulate it to the committee would be helpful.
right.
And I'll see if I can get a copy of it.
I went down there when I heard that it was coming up.
Yeah.
And I walked down that whole stretch of beach there to just check out the situation. And that it was after that that I got a call from Ian saying that they didn't go before them, that they not pulled it, but you know, whatever it was, they continued it for. Okay, I wasn't aware that it had come up again.
Yeah, well, the applicant wasn't just saying, no, thank you. He wants to repair his drawings.
Oh, I know.
And so he was, it had to, in effect, once you start the process,
Exactly.
it carried to a decision of some kind.
Yeah.
That's what I have to confirm.
Okay, anything else on chapter 91? Rick?
Keep the pressure on the Conservation Commission for liaison and exchange of information, please.
Right, Jeff has promised to keep us posted and so on
What's a new one?
for years.
Yeah, I'm not sure the commissioners, even though they ought to be on this from an administrative point of view, Lee, they're not sitting as folks who are in the office and get the correspondence from Boston or whatever, so they don't have access to that. And that's why Jeff and his staff, I think, have to be the ones to do it, so.
I was gonna follow up with Ian anyhow, because even though he sent us over that the link to that information that I distributed to everybody, I didn't get a commitment that we were gonna be copied on future stuff, so I want to reach back and go over that. And light a little fire under that. Anything else on 91? Washington Road, all set?
Yeah.
The next item, we had talked about the road work and the sewer installation and the third the new main, sewer main, from C Street out to treatment plant. And so I sent a message to David Gray, which I took the bullet points and sent to everybody on their process. And to recap it, they do not support trench patching for any of the projects, and they want to complete roadway reclamation curb to curb. And so he gave the layout of the stuff, and he's saying that they've been in front of every committee in the world, which we've been following anyhow. So it's one thing he noted is that Winter Street is going to become cobbles when they redo that street.
Is that because of the Coffin School there? Is that?
I think it's just because they
Little use
it ties into
the Main Street.
part of Maine and Liberty there.
So that's a crossway between Maine and Liberty? is
Yeah,
that-
it goes right in front of
Mhm.
Coffin.
And it's gonna be covered.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Probably more story.
But you know, little cobblestone, I went to school there.
Was it, so it's restoring what was there?
Yeah,
Well, they also had kerosene lanes when you went to school.
You'd have it-
no, not quite.
But that's strange because Liberty Street, the cobblestone stopped before you get to Winter.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
They're gonna stop and then.
They stopped to be on the back of the Methodist church.
yeah. So who knows, if at some point they don't push it down. It's interesting, one of the things, when I'm driving the shipwreck museum shuttle. To pass the time as we're going out there, if we go up Main Street. As you're bouncing all over the place, people talking about the cobblestone, so I tell them two things, the little known Nantucket secret is. That's the street that James Bond went into like his martini shaken, not stirred. And then the other thing is that there's a maintenance program, and every 5 years, they turn the cobblestones over so they don't get flat. Oh, really? But,
That sounds like a left-handed monkey run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ghost.
So you don't follow the name.
Green oil for your Portland.
So anyway,
Beaver's tail.
those are the points from David's update, and
Since
one of the
he's,
things they're talking to Will, I sent him, and he'll we'll ask him for any updates from him. But I sent him a message mainly so that when he's at any of these different meetings that he attends, which I'm sure more numerous every day, that whenever he hears of paging projects, sidewalk projects or whatever, if we could just keep us in the loop, so we aren't going back to DPW and David at a time and saying, what's going on here, what's going on there, so it's sort of
Sure.
outside of the scope, but just if you could add that in. Will?
Of course.
no, Will first, then just a quick comment, but Will first.
So for us right now, the ops manager and the director are putting together lists for larger paving projects for this fiscal year. But we have been working on various roads across the island that we're marking out for a state grant. It's more of a patching situation. So it's instead of entire roads, it's sections of the road. You guys might have seen some of these little orange markings that are appearing around town. And this is a work in progress. It's not a full list, but we've been marking stuff on Tom Nevers, Pleasant Street, Somerset, Center Street, Westchester, Coffin Street and Sconset, New Street and Sconset. And actually everything that we have marked out came in under budget from the grant. So we're going to be going out and marking out more. And this is areas of pavement that are just delaminated or in disrepair, but roads that might not necessarily be being completely repaved in the near future. So it's more like section repair stuff. But as far as like whole roads being redone and stuff like that, Stephen and Mo are still working on those lists. But I'm trying to keep privy to what's going on so I can report to you guys.
Lee?
Yeah, just a quickie, Bill, since you sent the note around and we've discussed it. it's my plan on putting it as an appendix to the minutes. That's
Yep.
good, okay.
Um, I'm just wondering, is this in the agenda, or would this be appropriate now to, about the sidewalks? I'm just thinking of Pleasant Street there, where, you know, the family has redone their, cut down all the trees, and then it looks like, I mean, you still see lots of people walking down there on Pleasant Street.
I think it's appropriate.
Really dangerous.
I think it's appropriate we bring Will up to speed. The committee and the select board, and several other committees had heard from the DPW back a couple of directors ago, when it was started, looking at the roundabout by the swimming pool. And then Williams Street, Williams Lane.
Yep.
And tying it into Pleasant Street. And the last real official report we got from the DPW was back when Rob said that the latest plan wasn't necessarily his plan, but it was a plan he was handed. And part of the issue was the very sidewalk that Phil brought up, from the lawn care down to Five Corners.
Yep.
And part of that was working with the homeowners that said, oh yes, we're gonna redo our property. Some trees were taken down, they took a bunch down. There's still a section, even if they put a sidewalk in there tomorrow, there's still a section from there towards Main Street that you still need to be a mountain goat.
Yeah,
So if you could just check to see what the latest official
sure.
plans are for that section, because we haven't heard. And it's something that keeps, and especially as this past couple of weeks, the traffic has just been so bad that that street is chock-a-block full all the time now with people and bicycles, whatever. So if you just bring us, for the next meeting, if you could bring us something, it'd be great.
There is an
Absolutely.
outstanding memorandum from this committee to the town, listing those streets that we believe should have footpaths. And it's not just Pleasant, but it's Prospect, Quaker, Cliff, Lover's Lane. There's 6 of them.
We sent it to them about 8 months ago.
Yeah. Well, we resent it to them about 8 months ago.
So,
We're gonna send it to them again, Bill.
Some of it, I think, was 6 years ago.
And Lover's Lane has already got a snafu that, the money. that
Yeah.
they're woefully short, so. The last I saw on that was, they were going back to the consultants and the engineers and seeing if they could do a partial. And then they're gonna tell me. Ed,
As far as the new sewer main installation and whatnot, and I know part of this is not directly under our purview. Our purview is more the existence of sidewalks and not the appearance of sidewalks. But take North Liberty Street's paving job as an example. If you drive down North Liberty Street, the section that they have yet to pave, but have done the sewer and town work, you'll see the sidewalk is asphalt, it's concrete, it's brick. They repaired some as it was. They randomly decided to do concrete or asphalt because it might have been cheaper than brick. This is a perfect opportunity to, if we like brick sidewalks, to do brick sidewalks. If we like concrete sidewalks, to make them all concrete, but to make them look like not a patchwork quilt. It's like shingling a house, but not shingling around into the windows and, having the house look like it's got measles or something.
When they replace the windows and just put the new shingles around them.
Right.
And stick out like a sore thumb.
Right, and that's kind of the way these sidewalks are sticking out right now.
So Ed, just come right down over there on Orange Street, and we've got the same variety.
I know,
And some of the,
we don't have to keep up the practice.
some of the asphalt is cracking, and it's not clear
Hodgepodge.
who would replace it.
Will, one of the thing I know, there was a house on Union Street where sidewalk work was done. And, I believe the initial plans were it's gonna be asphalt, and the homeowner said, well, I'd like to have brick, so I think whether the homeowner had to buy the bricks and then the town did the work or whatever. So if you could, as another aside, ask what the official policy is when they do a sidewalk work. Is it replace as is? Is it there was standard?
Sure.
I was looking to do, or,
To my knowledge, it would be replace as is, but I could be wrong on that. I know from any permitting stuff that comes to me that's, cutting into a sidewalk or cutting into a road, they're supposed to replace as is. But I can find out. I'm just writing a note down.
I will use my property, which is on the upper part of North Liberty, is between Westchester and the Cliff, as an example. There was no off-street parking when I bought my house, first of all. There was also an asphalt sidewalk. I put off-street parking in. At the same time, I decided to rip up the asphalt. I got permission from the town to rip up the asphalt sidewalk and make it brick. And actually, I widened it somewhat, so bikes and whatever. But the town gave me 1 pallet of bricks. Because apparently in the old days, they used to split the cost with you, but they quit doing that. And so they gave me 1 pallet out of, I don't know, 6-7 pounds. It must have taken to do the job. But in any event, and I had to have a private contractor, do the thing. So, but there might be, the lesson is there might be an opportunity in some of these areas where you think you're gonna put asphalt or concrete or whatever, to ask a homeowner if they're willing to participate. And a lot of these homeowners would say, fine.
Well, they really need to stay away from concrete, because if you put rock salt on it, because you've got ice and snow, it's gonna ruin it.
Yeah.
We had it right next door when I worked there.
You don't always put the expansion gaps in them, right?
No.
that'd be great if you could add that to your to-do list, Will.
For sure.
Um,
That's why you see concrete in Florida and not here, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything on roads and sidewalks on the table? No?
Okay.
Old, new, and other business, Mickey brought in thing that we'll share, about encroachment. You want to talk about?
23 Main Street, Wisconsin. They have gone right along the edge of the asphalt and driven 5-foot steel posts. They keep people from parking on the grass in front of their house. That is not town property. That is a state highway. All the way to the rotary. And these people think that.
Are they in the road layout?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
right at the edge of the asphalt. We got
Yes.
the edge of
Because
the
the-
asphalt, the grass, and then the hedge.
Yeah, just like all along Baxter Road too.
Worse.
There's also another one on, Cliff Road when you,
So return by, so we're going.
when you, have it in a little,
Yeah.
little brown.
They're now soldiering them. And on Delaney, there's the same thing going on. Instead of rocks, now they're putting soldiered, some of them
Yeah.
are like Belgian rocks.
Yeah.
Whatever. And they're at night. And if you pass someone on the road, people have to pull over and something. I mean, they're very dangerous.
Well, that's my,
Yeah.
with kids on bicycles.
So this is a question to the chair and from the chair to Will. The encroachment group or committee, I thought there was a small group with Ken Bogran and Steve Arsenault and maybe 1 or 2 others that looked at encroachments. If that's still active, let's pass number 23 Main Street, Wisconsin onto them. If it's not active, let's encourage them to reopen.
It is active, I think.
So I've been sending encroachments to Ken Bogran. That's been one of my side projects with the permitting. I actually just did all of Baxter Road the other day. But I'll put 23 Main and Sconset, you said?
Yes.
I can get that on my list. I'm noticing a lot of stubby wood posts, like very professionally installed. That seems to be the new fad.
Lincoln Circle.
They're dark.
Yeah, Lincoln Circle is out of control. But they're all over. I mean, I've seen them kind of starting to pop up all over the island. But I will write down 23 Main. And I know Ken is a very busy man. But I am starting to dump some more encroachment stuff on his plate to see where property lines are and such.
I think added to that is the town's willingness and ability to pursue the encroachment.
Right.
It gets, the minute somebody that's doing the encroachment, says they're gonna lawyer up and sue the town because they've been using that land or whatever.
Right.
The town has been reluctant to move forward on that. And all we have to do is look at Washington Ave in Wisconsin, Mattocket, where the town did all the surveying and everything and then just walked away from it. So
Mhm.
if you could also just let us give us an idea of the encroachment items that you have so that we can add to it, and we can also add it to our watch list and when we're out and about.
Sure.
Because we obviously are getting calls and we can at least say, oh yeah, that's on the list, the town knows about it. But it's not on the list and we'll pass it along, so
Absolutely.
be great, thank you.
A lot of these encroachments are not adverse possession, been there a long time, government encroachments, they're new property, quite frankly. A lot of them are, and some of it's an education issue. They don't know where their property really does it. Because it's always been landscaped in front of the property, so they think that's our part of the property. The other thing is, it even goes into the landscape community. Some of the landscapers know that's not their property, but it's becomes part of the project. So there is an education thing, and if you can nip it in the bud quickly when they're like the Sherburne Turnpike, that's a new property. And that's the Sherburne Turnpike Cliff. If they could quickly get a notification, is once it sits for 2 or 3 years and it's been like that, even though we still have the right to send a letter, if you become used to it for 2 or 3 years, it's too late to really get swift action on it, I guess you could say. And then now I have the same landscape crew on hand, which might take them a year to get back if they needed to do something about it.
In keeping with that suggestion, there is a landscapers association. Will, are you in touch with them?
No, it
Um,
seems like I
Let-
should be.
let's, contact information and ask them if they would circulate copies of the encroachment policy, or at least a quick summary, because it's a 5 or 6 page set of rules.
Yeah.
My reaction to that is it's a good idea, but Larry, the landscaper, is gonna do what his client's looking to do, because if Larry doesn't do it, we're also.
Somebody else will.
Well, that's yes and no. I mean, it's just like recently they've identified more thoroughly the town trees, particularly in places like North Liberty Street, some of these other streets in York, and they put these little medallions on. And landscapers identify some of them are worried about getting a fine if they now play with a tree, even when sometimes it needs to be done and the town's taking forever to get it done.
Yeah,
So-
I had Dale catch me trimming the one around the flagpole at Wisconsin Fire
Ah,
Station.
there we go.
I'll be out tomorrow to do that.
So-
You leave it alone.
See, well, at least if he comes tomorrow, that's great.
That's 6 weeks
Yeah.
later, he hadn't been there.
Right, yeah, that's
Sure.
exactly right, but it has to be,
Carrying flags up. at
it has to go
staff.
through a work order. It has to go through the work order process.
Anything else on old new business?
One
Alan?
quick thing on new business. I got an email from Lynn out in Wisconsin about Low Beach Road. Apparently there are property owners who are saying this is a private road and, that sort of thing, trying to discourage people from using that public way.
How far down will be? Past
Well,
the,
That's
Canterbury?
what I'm not sure about, just where the public, where it ends and so on. So, it would be something, when we're out in Sconset checking out the path. Take a look down at Low Beach Road and take a look at the signs. Lynn did send me some photographs of, that private road, no trespassing, or, the usual stuff that you find on this.
Yeah, that's great that you come make the turnaround to come back up at the end of the asphalt by the Loran station. But I remember as a kid down in there, there was bounds on both sides of that road, all the way to town that was farm.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm remembering too, so I
Yeah.
think,
Lynn is still on the call. If you want to add anything, Lynn?
I would say the Sconset Trust and the town owns land off of Low Beach Road. And this is discouraging access for anyone to go get to the beach. That is really their right to go down. And even Linda Loring and some of the nature trails that they would like to take people to show them natural plants and other items are afraid to go down there since it's marked private.
Okay, we'll add that to our
Beware of dogs.
Wisconsin.
yeah, right. I
That's coming
know,
next.
I know.
Any other old or new business, everybody? Rob, you all set?
Yes, he just
Okay, thumbs up.
held a thumbs up.
All right, it being the end of our posted agenda, unless we have something else, call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So our
adjourn.
next meeting will be a month from now. I did invite, that's one other thing, sorry. I did invite the transportation planner to come next month. And I believe everybody get the copy of the email that he sent, where he disinvited himself.
Well,
So
yeah,
he disinvited himself.
Yeah, he said, I need to get more familiar with the island. Yeah, well,
So, I'm gonna.
move here, buddy.
I'm gonna reiterate, we're not asking you to come and make decisions, we're asking you to come and introduce yourself. And you don't, my humble opinion is you don't need, the plus directors. Okay to do that, that's your job and you need to come and say hello, so. I guess I'm starting off on the wrong foot, that's how it is. So that being said.
Keeping it real.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, well, that Snooki's made it. We need a second.
second.
All
Okay.
right, so roll call. Ready?
Yes.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Rob?
Aye.
And Chair says aye. All right, thank you, everybody.
Date of the next meeting?
September 20th.
20th.
I will be inaccessible on the 20th.
What, are you in London again, or where are you going?
Reno.
Oh, Reno.
That's a gamble.
Didn't.
Sounds like
I
a boondoggle.
I want to bask in their cuisine.
That sounds like a committee meeting to me.
No, we bask in this one.
Lee, are you gonna be able to participate or you want?
I probably will not be able to participate, but I'll do the minutes from the recording. So we need to make sure there's a good
I will
valid
touch
recording.
base with you,
I put it in my notes.
Signing in, to make sure I hook up right, whatever.
Yeah.
And, we'll stick with that date. All right. The motion carries and thank you, everybody.
All right. Want that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will be closing this thing down, but let's see about shutting down the recording first.
See you next month. Good luck with the end of August.
Yeah, soon, I
Maybe,
hope.
maybe we should broaden our mandate to be roads, right of way and traffic.
No.
Then we can make